presents School is Now in Session.
Welcome to Homeschooled Podcast.
Homeschool.
The Homeschool Podcast. Why? Because he was homeschooled.
It's time to document the journey. Welcome back to Homeschool Podcast. I'm Augustino Zoida. I am the host of the Homeschool Podcast. It's great to have you guys with us. Thanks for tuning back in. I'm excited. I've been waiting for this episode for about 2 weeks, or I don't know. When was the first time I reached out to you? A week or two ago?
Yeah, it was a little while ago, yeah.
I've really been looking forward to it because I've been watching your YouTube videos for a couple of months, and then after I hit you up, I just kept watching them, and the more I watch, the more I look forward to talking with you. I think that you're so helpful. And then, it's been exciting. My co-host Kevin Lyons should be here any minute, but we're just going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by Puffy Mattress. Puffy Mattress is America's #1 voted mattress, and you guys, they are proud. This year, the year of 2020, they donated over 1,000 mattresses to a child. And if you purchased a mattress from Puffy Mattress, you were part of that. So every time that you get your mattress from them, they are donating to a child that needs a bed. Okay, so that's what they're doing. And not to mention, out of all the mattresses that gets delivered to your door in the box, I know we've all seen 1,000 ads for those. There's so many different companies. They truly are the best. America votes them #1 best. I have tried a couple, didn't work out, and when I found them, I was done looking, and my back pain went away. I sleep so much better. So guys, you're doing yourself a favor. You're helping out a child in need, and you're supporting the Homeschool Podcast. So please click the link in the description and that's it. Just sign up. And if you use my link, you're going to get $300 off your mattress, and they're going to throw in the free Puffy pillow, which I can no longer sleep without. I don't know what I'm going to do without it. So that's it, you guys.
Try this.
It's the pillow is like, my wife gets like a little jealous, I think, because I'm over there with the pillow. It's giant. It's like this giant pillow. Also, guys, please, if other ways to support the podcast that won't cost you anything, subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe to my Pandora channel. If you like listening to stand-up comedy on Pandora, you can go to Augustino Zoida Radio and listen to all your stand-up over there. That's a great way to support. Doesn't cost you anything. And I also have a comedy album out. It's called The Bad Guy. You can get it anywhere: iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify. If you already subscribe to those, then it'll be a free download for you. And you can find the links for everything at homeschooledpod.com. All right. So here we go. That's it. We're just starting. Kevin gets here when he gets here. Thank you so much for being on. I absolutely love what you do online.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're great because not only there's a lot of tutorial videos which are great. They're not long, and I've watched a few. I've watched a lot of other people's, and I stumbled upon yours, and it really makes things easy. And you know how there's some people you ever think to yourself, oh, excuse me, sorry, there he is. I'll let him in.
Hey, let him in.
Just when we get going.
Come on in, Kevin.
Come on in, Kevin.
Come on in.
So, I'll introduce you. Hey,
Sorry, I had to take a call real quick. Hi,
worries.
how's it going?
Hi.
This is Kevin Lyons, the co-host. This is Pamela Kay.
Hi, Pamela.
Hello.
We were just talking about her YouTube channel, which I've discovered from trying to find little tips on how to better your screenplay writing, and I came across hers, and it's just, your channel is awesome, not only because the tutorials are really easy to follow, and it's like you can listen to you. And what I was gonna say is, like, you know how you meet people and like they're speaking English, but sometimes they're not understanding you and you're not understanding them. It's just like in their head it makes sense, and you ever think to yourself, I do it in relationships all the time. Like, I'm married, my wife and I will have those moments sometimes, and you just go like, it made sense to me. I don't know why you don't understand this, you know what I mean? But I feel like the way that you explain things is really like, it really makes sense. And it's been super, super helpful. And then you do videos where you're just sharing your stories and your experiences and how you came up with this solution. And one thing that Kevin and I usually say is, in order to think outside the box, you have to first know where the box is. So
Yeah, you have to know what's inside the box.
I like that you really give us the rules, and then you also kind of go, but, don't always have to stick with that. You know what I mean? You're your own writer, you're your own process. So anyway, that was my long opening rant.
You got to know the rules that you're breaking.
Yeah.
You got to know if you're going to break the rules, you have to have a reason why you're doing it, right?
Totally. So I just love it. And then you were telling your experiences when you tried acting, and I just like that you share experiences. It's very much like a podcast. I don't know if that's what you do. You consider some of those a podcast?
The whole channel kind of came in a strange way. I never intended to have a YouTube channel. I didn't think it would turn into anything. And this also, I think it seems like the main thing and why it kind of hit. I just put some videos out there, and I didn't think I'm going to be like a YouTube thing or anything. I thought that was impossible. And what people seem to really catch on is after I watch your videos, I feel like I could actually do it. All the other videos they just watch a bunch of videos and they go away with their head down oh my God, I can't do this because it's just too scary.
Yeah.
And I'm being so weird. And I'm also thinking, how can you teach creativity and not be creative while you're doing it? So people are there step A, be very creative in the way you execute and it's what? And so I'm just being weird and silly and messy, and it's not perfect. And I kind of like that my videos look like, grandma baked them in the oven. They didn't come in a package off the store, so they're kind of messy. And I used to have my dog run around in the back sometimes. And so to just kind of free people up to just go for it and don't get so perfect about it and so precious, because everyone else is telling you don't do this, you're going to make a mistake, and then Hollywood's not going to want to see anything from you, and you're so scared. They're just so petrified. So they're thank you, you just make me feel like I can do this.
Right.
And that's been huge, because that I think is almost the biggest hurdle. I think that's even bigger than learning the craft, because there's so much information out there how to do it, how to format things like this. Although you're right in giving it in an easy way. My very first videos were more realistic, because I think most screenwriting stuff, they teach you not to beginning. They assume let's talk about the hero's journey. And it's no, wait, let's have someone read a script first. Let's have them read one.
Yeah.
Maybe they need to know what it looks like. And so just step by step how to do it. But then other than that, just go ahead and just go for it and just make a mess, and you can fix it and rewrite it, and it's okay. And, from stand up, it's you throw something on stage and it's terrible and it doesn't work, but you have this, feeling I know that I can get this to work, and you keep plugging away at it. You change it, you modify it, and you finally get it to work. And so just to let them be a little messier with it has been huge.
I get that. And I think a lot of it is that you also once were in the position of oh no, I'm not going to be able to do this, or you were, you always kind of talk about how you were also scared once, or it makes people think well, she's kind of like me, and she started out struggling, or she started out having to learn all this stuff on her own. Which, listen, we're called Homeschool Podcast because I was a homeschooled child, but mostly it's we've all had to learn how to follow our dreams on our own. I didn't go to school to be a comic, and I think that I've heard you say that you didn't go to college for that either. You taught yourself how to do it by reading books and watching videos, and you're very vulnerable by telling people I was as scared as you are, and that's what makes us feel you know what, she's right, look at her now. And I also started out feeling like that.
Yeah, my scripts were so bad in the beginning. I mean, they were so bad. I gave my brother one of them, and he's a professional writer, the real deal, and he read it, and then he just looked at me and said, what's this about? What is this? They were so bad. One of them was called The Masturbation Diet, and I can't tell you exactly what the plot was. I don't even know.
Well, at the same time, I like how you were saying, don't be afraid to make a mess with it, because that actually, when I realized that actually solved a lot of problems for me, because I used to be so all right, I'm writing a scene, I want to make it as perfect as possible, but when you're writing all these scenes together, it's wait, why don't you just put the story together first? So I would always just write, I'm what is the point of the scene? Especially with the dialogue, I would be what is the basic dialogue that gets me through the scene? And then I actually found out, I'm wait, this is a really great way to actually figure out what the scene is about. If you say it as simple as possible, and then you can add on all the other things. And I don't know, I like the messy approach.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think, a lot of people that are teaching writing aren't writers. They're story analysts, and they're wonderful. And I'm not putting them down, and I read what they do, and everyone else should. But the analogy I have is, a lot of times they're teaching you how to make a chicken by examining a chicken. So they're telling you, okay, you put the beak on the face, and then you put the wings on the body, and then you put the feet on the legs. But that's not how the chicken was made. The chicken grew from an egg and slowly evolved. So they're teaching you how to make the finished product, but not necessarily how to get to the finished product in an organic way. So teaching screenwriting as a screenwriter, I more try to get people to start from the egg and slowly grow the egg. So sometimes you need to write a crazy, messed up, ridiculous, who knows what that was draft, because you go down these rabbit holes and you come back from them maybe with a character you never would have gotten had you not gone down that crazy thing that didn't work. Or you write a complete draft and you go, you know what? This other character is my lead character. This isn't my lead character. Or you make this big mess.
Wow.
And I have a script I just finished, and I had all the characters and everything, and I just respined it. I added a main character to spine all these stories together. I never could have come up with this if I thought I had to plot everything out perfectly the way it's supposed to go in the beginning. So you kind of have to go down those rabbit holes and let yourself do that to come back with something precious. Because otherwise, I don't know how people... I don't know my experience or anyone else who, you get the whole thing. That's the impression that so many screenwriting teachers give you, is everything before you even start writing. You outline it out, and there's this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and this, and you write it. And it's just no room for any kind of craziness to seep in and get in there and to bring that into it. So yeah, messier, go down the rabbit hole, write crazy scenes, make a mess, and riff on it. More riff. Like, my background's also dance, so I understood listen to a song and just get in the mood and just kind of go with it. And then if something's good, try to remember it and get it down as fast as you can.
Yeah.
So you guys probably do that in stand-up too. You probably have some of your favorite bits happened in the moment.
Absolutely.
When a heckler said something,
Yeah.
you said something back and you capture that. Well, you couldn't have sat down and said, I want to make a joke
Exactly.
about such and such. But it was so in the moment, and you were playing with it, and you were in it. That's where it comes from. And that's the side of your brain you have to be into when you're writing screenwriting too. You can't be in that left side, all these rules and everything, because then you're not on the right side, download the information and let the characters talk side. So it's the difference between the art and the craft. It's like, again, my background is dance. We've all watched a YouTube video where you might see the most perfect ballerina, and her leg can go up here and it's perfect, and she can turn 15 times and it's perfect. And we might not want to watch that as much as the video of the dad who got really drunk at the wedding, is just like, and he's got technically nothing, but he's feeling it and he's so into it. So you've got to have that kind of balance of the art and the craft.
Yeah, I was, the whole time you were saying that, I kept going like, oh my God, this reminds me of stand-up so much, because yeah, I get my basic premises, which I kind of write down the anchors and go like, okay, this is the premise, this is where I think the joke's going to go, but then I've never really written a joke all the way through on paper. I would come up with a premise and go on stage and try it, which is part of the reason that, like, these lockdowns have killed me so much, because I started stand-up when I was 20, and in Los Angeles. I'm from Los Angeles, and this whole time I thought of something, and that night I can go up on stage and go down the rabbit hole and see where it takes me. And like, now I can't do that. I think of stuff and I just have to sit there and go like, oh, I can't I can't go. But I've started to get back into writing recently, and that's just another creative outlet, and I've always really been interested in screenwriting, which is obviously why I've kind of stumbled across you. How long has it been since you did stand-up?
Oh God, forever. And we have to also qualify what we talk about with stand-up. So I was in Spokane, Washington, right, where there are no open mics. They don't exist.
Yeah.
And this also goes into, I might start adding more videos about this on my channel soon. I really think, and this goes to stand-up too. There's your work as your stand-up, right? But then there's also you. And I think sometimes what might be blocking your career in stand-up might not be because you need better jokes, you need this or that. It's because like you just aren't ready for it energetically, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like you kind of have to get in sync with life. There was a book that I used to love called Extreme Success. And he said, your life is like a wheel. And so each little segment of your life, it's like your relationships, your health, your everything. It's part of the wheel. And if anything isn't up to snuff, there's going to be like a rut in the wheel, and the wheel gets stuck. So it's like you kind of have to get your whole life in gear to kind of be ready for success that goes beyond just getting your craft ready. Well, I had been teaching dance, and I taught dance at Eastern Washington University, and that was kind of in the past. It was in my rearview mirror, and my Tony Robbins says there's part of us that has to be creative it has to have creative expression. Like that's the core part of our human beingness. And I think for artists even more so. So I was dying. I was like saying like, oh, my creative energy has nowhere to go. And then what popped in my head was, well, you should have your own sitcom. And I'm like, I live in Spokane, Washington. Like I was really bad. And I was in one play in high school and I was really bad. Like that's the worst idea I've ever had. And then you have to be a stand-up comic if you're going to be in a sitcom. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm in Spokane, Washington. This is not helping me.
Right.
I'm not a good actress. This is the world's second worst idea I've ever had. And then I had a dancer contact me like the next day, say, come to this gym in a week. I show up. They said, we want to do this variety show. So we want you to choreograph something. I was like, yeah, I don't know. But I kind of think I should be a stand-up. And the guy was a 6-time Zima comedy champion from Atlanta. He goes, okay, you'll be a stand-up. 2 weeks later, I was on stage.
Wow.
Paid show.
Ooh, paid your first time.
I never did open mics because in Spokane, there were only paid shows. So
yeah.
Like, there you go.
How did it go?
I was inconsistent, but I had the greatest comedy mentors. They were in LA with Sam Kinison and Jerry Seinfeld. And they were really cool. And they were game to like, just go up there and do your thing. It was nice because I had to perform. Like I couldn't just go screw around or whatever. So that was nice. But the downside was I also couldn't go there and screw around and just play with things and just kind of work it out. So I'd only been doing this for like a year. And my comedy uncles, I call them, they said, when you first start out, you're going to be good with a great audience. Then you get a little bit better and you're going to be good with a good audience. And then you've really made it when you're good with a bad audience. Like you can turn it around. I was sporadic. Like sometimes I could hit. When I hit, I would really hit. And the more sober the audience was, the better, because then it worked blue. It's like if they're drunk, I'm over. And then I'd only done live paid shows. I'd never done open mics. So I get in my little car and I drive to Seattle, like the real comedy club, to go audition for the Seattle comedy competition. And there's something like 2 spots open and 20 comics all auditioning. And at the time there was this idea in Seattle that because grunge music had become so popular, grunge comedy was coming. And what grunge comedy is, it's almost like an Andy Kaufman kind of a thing. It's like they like kind of bomb on purpose and you're not sure, like, is that a person that came off the street? Are they okay? Are they supposed to be up there? Like, what's happening right now? Like the more confused the audience was, the more they liked it. And
I think we called it alt out here. We used to call it alt.
God.
Alt comedy.
It was the weirdest thing. So they're all doing these strange, weird things, and they've never had to get laughs because they've just done open mics. I had to get laughs, so I would get up there and actually get some laughs. They're like, okay, you're in. I'm in the Seattle comedy competition, which was hilarious. And so I would do what was called Montana runs, where you do like 5 days in Montana, or you go to Idaho and you're doing like the Best Western, or like a bowling alley, lava lanes, that kind of, you're doing the thing. I've done all those. Right? You're doing the grind. And I think it didn't really work for my personality, because once I did a joke, I would want to say, okay, that worked, done, moving on, and not have to do the same jokes over and over again, which you have to do for like 2 years to really hone the material. So I started doing the writing then, and it kind of parlayed into that. And so once I had the writing, it's like, okay, I can do this all the time. And I can also be as weird as I want to be, because if I would have done stand up for much longer, I swear I would have had puppets, because I just was so weird. And I couldn't really get away with what I wanted to get away with as me. I mean, I would do weird things like teach Lamaze on stage, which I thought, who's going to go for this? But then I did it on stage once. And 2 weeks later, this guy comes up to me and he looks like he just came out of like a Poison concert with like just heavy metal something. And he's like, that thing you did about like labor, that was hilarious. And I was like, okay, that's cool. But also I wanted to start to write for the other comics, because I would see what they were doing and I would want to change what they were doing. And I'm like, no. And it was cool that during the Seattle comedy competition, all the comics, we would all sit in the back and we would watch the comic on stage. And it was so cool because, like in screenwriting, you have to write a character, right? And the character has a very specific point of view on the world. Like you're making this like almost an archetype, but an extreme. So we'd sit there and watch the people, and we would examine their act, and we'd be like, should that comic keep the microphone in the stand, or should they be holding it and walking?
Yeah.
Because it makes a difference. Like, like a Chris Rock, where he's almost pacing and he's building the energy.
Right.
And he could stop, give the punchline. And if he just had the mic in the stand and just talked with his hands, it'd be a whole different thing. So we'd examine like how they should dress to go with their character, and whether or not the mic should be in the stand, if they should talk with their hands, like really building that whole character. And it really plays into screenwriting. A lot of people think, oh, stand-up, it's just go up on stage and tell a bunch of jokes, but you really have to make sure, what is your character? Because you're taking this little facet of you that is you, it's true, but then you're exaggerating it, and then what is the point of view on the world, that whole thing. So once I could do that with all these different characters in the screenplay, and I could do these outrageous, if I wanted to do this bit and stand up, and I couldn't figure out quite how to do it. I wanted to do all the like hack impressions, like Shatner and all those, but I couldn't decide. Is it funnier if I'm really good, or is it funnier if I'm like really bad?
It's so funny. I once knew a guy that was so bad at impressions that he would just do them all the time, that he would get laughs because they weren't good. And then he would go up on stage, and his first line would be, "Who loves impressions?" and the audience would cheer, and he'd be like, "Ah, shit." Like sorry, go on. You just reminded me of that guy.
But that's what was fun about writing the screenplays, is then you can start to write for different characters versus writing essentially for the same character all the time, which was, to me, felt limiting. I wanted to write for this comic, and I want to write for that comic, and I knew my writing was pretty. I had a comic come from out of town, and I would be pretty quiet off stage, and they're like, "Oh, this is our little local comic," and they're like, "Oh, aren't you cute? Isn't that nice?" And then they'd probably say, let me tell you about the biz. And I'm like, sure, tell me about the biz. And I'd be really quiet off stage. And then I go on stage, and it would be very different. And they'd kind of look at me afterwards and be like, that was surprising. But they would also, I had one like offer to buy a bit that I would do, like this big long bit that I would bring down the house with. And they offered to buy it. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm pretty good at writing this stuff. And so that's when it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Did you sell it?
No, because it was too good. Someday I'm going to turn into a sketch. I got to turn into a sketch someday.
There you go.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
I've only ever wanted to do stand-up, and that's not what I started with. But then whenever I have done any acting at all, it was always like a very nice vacation from stand-up. It was like you're like an escape room for a little while. Like when you're doing stand-up, you are doing a version of you and being very vulnerable and putting yourself out there. And then it's kind of nice to do acting sometimes. You're just hiding behind a character, which is great. How long did you end up doing stand-up for?
It was only like a year and a half, something like that. And so I got into the comedy competition. Like, I'd only been doing it for a year.
How'd you do in the competition?
I did really well the night that we performed at a college because everybody was sober. Then we started hitting the bars, and I was doomed.
Oh man! Why do you think that you didn't do well in the with drunk crowds?
Because they wanted dick jokes.
Oh yeah.
They just endless supply of dick jokes.
Yeah.
I don't have any dick jokes, but yeah. Okay.
It's like those late shows.
But I bet you could come up with a really good one that would work. Have depth and meaning.
See, yeah, it would be so deep, it would make you reassess your life.
Oh man, you gotta hear this joke.
The ultimate dick joke.
You know what's funny is that I have another friend. He's a comedian. His name is Afion Crockett. He's been in like a bunch of movies and stuff. But his background is military. I remember that you grew up on a military base, right? He wasn't a military. His father was. He grew up in a military base also, moving around constantly around the world. And what's so funny is that he became a dancer first. I don't know why that just popped in my head, but because I think, well, obviously you reminded me of that. I'm like, that's so crazy. Military leads to dancing somehow. and then the
ultimate dick joke.
And then stand-up comedy. Yeah.
That's the way it goes.
The ultimate dick joke.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I just think that's so weird that you guys have a similar background. What's up, Kev?
No, I was gonna say, especially when it comes to writing, kind of want to talk about is like, when you have so many great ideas, and forgive me for this term, but I've heard it so many times when people say you got to kill your babies when a really good idea that you really want to work, when to cut those out. You know what I mean? Especially when you're writing, because it's so easy to fall in love with something that you really want to do or a part that you really want in writing, and it's just when you have to cut, knowing when to cut it out, you know?
I think there's some things, if you're really feeling strong about it, give it a couple more whacks. Like you might not just have been able to figure it out quite yet, but it still might belong in there somehow. And you just haven't figured out how yet. But then when it depends on, well, if it's a screenplay, if it's like completely changing the tone or completely changing the plot, but you can usually hold on to those and put them in later. The funny thing is, I think only 2 lines from my stand-up ever made it into any of my scripts. Like all my good stand-up bits, they just didn't make them in, and I didn't feel the need to shove them in. But there was one character who was really the one who I gave my voice, was this really yappy stalker. He's like a stalker with a heart of gold, and he's really yappy, and he really liked girls, but they didn't like him for some reason. He was the closest to my voice. He got a couple lines, but I mean, it is sad when you get notes and you're like, oh, I got to rip that out and rip that out. And I don't know. It's hard. It's like, you got to know, I call it your compass to know when you're on track and when you're off track. And it goes with life as well. You know, whether you're not, you're at least on the yellow brick road, you might not be at Oz yet, but you know, you're on the path, you know? So it's like, you just kind of have to vibe it out. And I consider it like fine tuning your compass and making sure it points true north, that you can kind of know which way to go on things, which is always tricky. And
some things just may not be right for this particular project. Like you could just hang on to it and use it in the next project. Like I can't tell you how I've like sat on a joke for years and went like, I've tried and tried, I just can't get it to work. There's something there, but I just can't get it to work. And then it's literally been like 5 years will go by, and all of a sudden I'll do a different bit and I'll be like, that'll go perfect right there. And it just kind of brings everything right in. I love moments like those, which ironically I did once, and it's now like this great dick joke, to be honest with you.
You beat me to it.
I have this
funny though, because those things that you cut out, it's not like you just throw them away and this is awful. It's like they're good ideas. So you just keep them in your back pocket for another project where it might work on, you know? I think that's a really good thing to think about when you realize you have to cut something out that you love.
Oh, yeah.
The next thing I would want to ask you is, for many years, I hosted an open mic. Like I ran the bar where you had to come sign up with me, okay? And I would often see a number of different people who aren't stand-ups, don't do stand-up, don't want to do stand-up. And those people would be lawyers, was a frequent one, would come do open mics, screenwriters, and actors. And lawyers, I've asked a bunch of them why so many lawyers want to come to open mic. They said their job is very stressful. They just want to come blow off steam, and it's cheaper than therapy. A lot of them would say that it was practice to charm the jury, to become off as like amusing and charming. And then with screenwriters and actors, I've heard different things. Actors used to tell me that, their acting coach sent them to do stand-up. They would go, I don't want to do stand-up. My acting coach sent me. So they'll go do stand-up, and they'll try it a couple times to go back. Do you think that because you were stand-up first, are you applying any of what you learned how did it help you as a writer?
I think a ton of it helped. And I think this is something I always tell all my want to be screenwriters too. Whatever your background, it's going to help you in your writing. I don't care what it is. If it's sports, you're going to understand trying to win. So you're going to understand conflict between characters. This character wants to win against this character wanting to win. If you did music, you're going to understand riffing. If you did painting, you're going to understand the process that you did for painting to go into that. So for me, dance, accounting, and stand-up, I used to do accounting too, all went into screenwriting. And like you said, where you don't really write down bits, you just kind of go on stage and say them. Most writers write too much. They overwrite anything. And it was Barbra Streisand. I remember she'd said when she was directing, Barbra Streisand would say faster, funnier, faster, funnier. any extra word that is in there that doesn't need to be there slows it down and starts to kill the joke. So editing out, we just so naturally edit out things when we speak, because half the times we don't even talk in words. We talk with our hands. We make noises. We grunt, whatever. We leave silence and let them fill in the blanks. So I learned from stand-up how little you needed. And I did exactly what you did. I learned that. Just have the idea of what you want to do. Don't sit there and write it out. Just go on stage and then just do it and see how it comes out and remember that. And that was very similar to dance. Play the music, get in the mode, try something, try to remember it if it works. That totally fell into what I was doing, the stand-up. So dialogue really, really helped. And then just also just understanding, making a character that these people each have to have a certain point of view, and how fun it is to say lines, and to also think a little bit about the actors. One thing I'm always telling screenwriters when I'm reading scripts, and this, again, I play back and forth between the art and the craft. One thing you really have to think about when you're writing a screenplay is, what is the actor going to think when they're reading this? Because they're going to be constantly thinking, what is my character doing? What does my character want? Am I just fading into the background in the scene? So you really want to make starring roles. So let the star have the first line of the scene and the last line of the scene as much as possible, or at least the last moment. So just understanding a performer and how much they want to perform. You can't then hand a performer a script where half the scene they sit there going, someone else is doing. They always have someone else get the information and bring the lead the information. So they're just sitting there listening to someone told them what's going on, and someone else gave them in the information of the case, and they don't do anything. So performers love to perform and to speak and do things and be into the crowd. So understanding how much fun it is to perform, that you want to put that on the page for the actor that's going to do this, and make sure they don't fade into the background, because that happens a lot in the scripts that I read.
Off the top of your head, can you think of a movie where you've thought to yourself, a particular scene or a movie where they overwrote? Like, what's a good example of overwriting?
Oh, I can't.
Without shitting on any movie in particular.
Yeah, let's go shit on a movie. I can't think. I mean, there's always times where you think, oh, that line didn't need to be said. That's kind of obvious. Redundant. That what's going on didn't need to be said. They're on the nose. They're saying what they feel. But then I think sometimes people are a little too allergic on the nose. Sometimes people do speak on the nose. There can be moments when people speak on the nose where they are saying exactly what they think, and it can be. That can mean something if they don't usually speak that way. But yeah, they usually just too many words. I mean, pretty much every amateur script I get has just got way too much dialogue. And I'm sometimes even guilty of it too. Even with my background, you're so worried the audience won't understand what you're trying to say that you'll overdo it. And then you go back and you go, okay, I can cut half the scene. I mean, you're just cutting so much. There's
Again,
a lot of
with stand-up, we use the term trim the fat.
Yeah.
You'll test something, you go down the rabbit hole, you'll see where it actually leads you. This is a good bit. Then you go write it down. Then you go, now what can I cut? To get to the faster, funnier, like you were talking about. Do you get, how many scripts do you get from people going, please check this for me, from amateur scripts? How often do you get those?
Well, I sometimes, not too often, am available to hire to do notes, and it's not that often because I'm usually busy doing other things, but I'm constantly getting emails from people. I just got one the other day, and this is very typical. I just wrote my first script in 6 days, and I found that managers want a referral. So can you refer me to a manager? Okay. Wow. Okay. And I think that's something else that stand-up and dance can teach the budding screenwriter. Somebody who's gone through learning how to do stand-up is not going to expect to write a script in 6 days and sell it. They might think, okay, I'm ahead of the game because I had the stand-up experience, but this is new. I don't know this. There's stuff I don't know. And you're willing to run the marathon. You're like, all right, this is new. I might not have it at first. Same thing even when you try a new bit, even when you're an experienced comic. I love the movie Comedian with Jerry Seinfeld, where he's spending 2 years honing new material, and half of it bombs, and he's got to work
That's
it out.
a great doc.
So isn't that good?
I love it.
Every comic should watch that.
Mm-hmm.
And every creative should watch The History of the Eagles Part 1 too. That was just
what is it?
The History of the Eagles Part 1.
The History of the Eagles Part 1.
Of the Eagles, yeah.
Of the band The Eagles?
Is that the documentary on Netflix?
So good.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
It's on
I've
Netflix
watched
right now.
both parts. It's
So
really good.
good.
I love it.
Okay.
Every creative should watch it because
Yeah.
it isn't just, I'm not even necessarily a huge Eagles fan to super respect them, but that documentary, whether it intended to or not, it really showed like the creative process and how some of their songs came from a line. One of their songs come from a riff. And it was this, again, when I was talking about the egg that evolves versus the let's put this lyric onto this riff. And things kind of evolve in a haphazard, finger painty kind of a way. So that is an amazing thing to watch.
Okay.
What were you talking about? Yeah.
We
What were
were
we just talking about?
We were
Like, off
talking
of the
about how
Eagles.
you get scripts and people want you to give them a manager.
Yes. Yeah. So even stand-ups would realize, okay, this is going to be something new. I'm going to be ahead of the game because I did stand-up, but there's going to be a whole lot I don't know, and I'm willing to go through it and have a really thick skin to hear,
Yeah.
no, this is not working. Yeah.
You gotta
'Cause one
be
of my
willing.
brothers like, yeah, my brother's like, what is this about? I'm like, damn it. But I was going to keep going. Like, that did not slow me down. I'm going to try again.
Yeah,
So
rejection's my middle
learn.
name.
Yeah, exactly. You learn. My comedy uncles would say, if you go on the road for 5 days, one show's going to be amazing, 3 are going to be okay, and one's going to be awful. And that's just the way it is. Just live with it.
Would I know your uncle, or do you not want to say who he is?
Comedy uncles. There's a bunch of them.
Oh, you just meant comedy uncles. I thought you were saying like you have an
Yeah.
uncle who's a
No.
Okay.
It was these amazing group of comedians that were in Spokane, my town, that were all from LA, who, were friends with Sam Kinison back in the day,
Oh,
and
cool.
Jerry Seinfeld, and they knew the whole crew, and, guys who had, been on specials and were the
Yeah. My
top
good
tier
friend
kind of things. It was real rare.
my buddy who I toured with, Jimmy Schubert, was Canison's crew. I don't know if that's one of the dudes that you knew back then. Did you ever know him
Who
back
is
then?
it?
Jimmy Schubert.
Who is it?
Oh, I was saying he's a comic who is who used to be in the Kinnison crew. But okay, so we've got about 6 minutes left on the clock, and I just think that's funny. Have you ever come across a script where it was amateur, but you still went like, "Hey, this is actually pretty good"? Like, let me help this
I
person.
think usually I can almost find magic in every single script that is sent to me, no matter how, maybe crazy formatting, maybe it really needs a proofread, whatever. I can almost always find some kind of magic in there because there's something that was on their heart to tell that story. And that's bleeding through, whether or not they've completely encapsulated or not. There's little moments of it. So I call it when it's in the pocket. Somehow I ended up in LA at this meeting that was with these music moguls, and it was in the music industry, and they were playing songs for the guys, and they sit there and listen, and then they'd be like, it was in the pocket, then it was out of the pocket, then it was in the pocket. And so there's always moments. For me, I feel like I don't apply certain rules to every script. I read a script and I'm like, where is it working? Or how do we get the rest of it up to that level? It's like, where is it hitting? Where's the target for this? Because everybody has it. And I usually want to find out from them what inspired you to write this, because that's going to be sacred ground. We're not going to tear that apart, and find out what was interesting, and sometimes I'll also do story development with people. And they'll talk about their plot, but then I'll find out like that's not really what you want to say. And I'll ask about their life, and I'm like, kind of feels like you want to say this, and then I start crying like, oh
wow.
And so I've almost always found something magic in every single script I've read. It doesn't even matter what level they are, because it's like the inspiration is perfect, but then there's this buffer of their skills to express that inspiration, and that might still seem works, but it there's at least a couple scenes where it's there. So yeah.
All right, before we go, we have a segment at the end of the podcast that's called Kevin Asks Our Guests Random Questions. So he'll ask you one random question that probably has nothing to do with anything that we talked, just for fun.
You know what? It kind of has to do with what
Oh,
we're
okay.
talking
Okay,
about,
okay.
but it's not completely. It's still a cool random question.
All right, all right.
Okay.
Question.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Ready.
If you could be a part of one sitcom family and write yourself into this family, what sitcom family would you be in?
Ooh, good question.
Oh, I'd want to be like weird and dysfunctional, like something just weird. what are some good? It's not really a family, but I'd want to be like Maria Bamford's friend on Lady Dynamite. Like family, but I want to be her like best friend. Like,
Yeah.
Okay. Something where I get to be really, really weird.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah,
What about you, Augustino?
I think I would do. I would want to be written in somehow to Everybody Loves Raymond. I think.
Yeah.
I would think. I would want to be like a lost Italian relative from Italy or something like that. When I was a little kid,
exchange student.
when I was a teenager, I used to watch this show on the Disney Channel with Shia LaBeouf, and I always was like, "Dude, I should play his brother or something." Like I would love to play in something with him.
That's funny.
You got one, Kev? Did you think about your answer?
I thought, well, there were way too many. I was gonna say either like
what a lazy answer.
Either Home Improvement, Family Matters, or Boy Meets World.
Well, yeah, I want to see how you would write yourself into Family Matters.
It'd definitely be interesting.
Good question, man. So as we wrap up, just a couple minutes left. I encourage everybody to, if you want to just advance your skills a little bit with screenwriting, everyone should check out your YouTube channel, which is why am I drawing a blank? Dancing.
Word Dancer.
Word Dancer. Sorry.
Word
I was drawing a blank
Dancer.
there for a second. Which is Word Dancer. So everyone should check that out. I just recently watched one which I thought was great, when you basically took this really great scene from The Sixth Sense and then you like edited out what made it such a good scene. And then you just showed what the scene would be if you didn't have all that good writing and like uniqueness and stuff. And it's like you see what you guys are basically writing, and I just thought that was so great. So if anyone is serious about screenwriting, I highly recommend it. And you teach a class, right? Or are you taking students at the time?
All my classes or video classes, you can take them whenever you want to. There's no specific time. So I have some video classes. They're all on my website, screenwritingclassesonline.com. And then on there's also a totally free class, which would also apply somewhat to screenwriters too. It's really just a pep talk to because you have all the little voices that tell you can't do this and here's all the reasons why. And it's kind of like how to make those go away, which it's for screenwriters, but it also pertains to all creatives as well.
I think you're great at that too. And I just wanted to personally thank you because you've been really, really helpful. And you're probably going to get cut off soon, so I didn't hang up on you. So the video is going to run out of time. It'll end. But I just wanted to personally have you on and thank you because you've been really helpful and motivational and really motivating me. I'm getting excited about writing again. And thank you so much for spending time with us. I know you're busy reading all those scripts that people send you. And so thank you very much for being on. I appreciate it.
This is fun. Thanks for inviting me.
I had a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good meeting you too.
You too. So you can go ahead and log off if you want to. We're just going to read the outros and stuff. So thanks so much for being here.
Cool.
And have a great night.
Guys. Bye. All right, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, Kevin. That was fun. Dude.
Sorry, I had to talk to work real quick.
Oh, no worries. So we're still going. I can't believe the camera didn't cut out yet. Anyway, dude, yeah, that she's great. Like if you ever just want to, I mean, anything that you thought you already knew, like if you're sitting there going like, well, I'm a screenwriter, I already know the basics, but there's still stuff in the basics that doesn't tell you stuff. Like you can never not learn new things. And dude, if you ever get a chance, just watch one of her videos. They're great. Like she'll take like a scene from a movie and just like this is what bad writing looks like. Take out that part, take out that, and then you watch the scene and you're like, oh, this sucks. And we just lost Kevin because the video cut out. Anyway, you guys, that's our show. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I really had a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of hers. I'm a big supporter of hers. And she is great at the motivational speaking and inspirational, especially if you're an artist. So check it out. I mean, the YouTube videos are great, free. Go subscribe. And I would really appreciate you subscribing to my YouTube channel, Augustino Zoida. And that's where these episodes are going in video. And that's also where I release some other content, like, stand-up clips every now and then and stuff like that. And I really want to start doing some storytelling on there, bits that are just basically stories. So all in due time, lots of content coming. We're excited. We're excited to have you a part of the Homeschool Podcast. I want to give a big thank you to our guest today, Pamela Kay. I want to give a big thank you to our co-host, Kevin Lyons, as always. And most importantly, we couldn't do it without you. We would do it anyway without you, but it wouldn't be the same. And you guys are the best, so please continue to come back and support Homeschool Podcast. And the best way to support is going to homeschooledpod.com. Pick up a t-shirt or something, download my album. All the links are there. Follow me on social media. I'm also open to take questions if you want to ask me something, if you want advice, if you want to just talk. You can go to homeschooledpod.com, click contact. I'll get back with you, okay? And that's it, you guys. That is it. Don't forget about our sponsors, Puffy Mattress. Click the link in the description and get $300 off your mattress. Start the new year with good rest, finally. You deserve it, all right? And that's it, you guys. We're Homeschool Podcast. We document the journey. And don't forget that only love can save the world. I'm Augustino Zoida. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good weekend. Homeschool Podcast.
Homeschool.
The Homeschool Podcast. Why? Because he was homeschooled.
I don't want to do that.
Okay.
I don't want to do that at all.